Welcome to Defternity 2022, and I'm super happy to tell that we are having Sandro Mancuso for the next hour to chat and talk about professionalism in our industry. And Sandro, of course, is the perfect person to talk and discuss it with because you are the co-founder of Cadurance, the company that knows how to build software almost for 10 years. So next year you're having anniversary, more than 200 developers. And of course, you're also the author of the famous book, The Software Craftsman.
Yeah. So it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. So hi, everyone from the Eternity 2022. I've been with you like for a few years now. So it's great to be here with you again.
Yes, perfect. And then we can just dig into the a bit controversial topic, I believe. But before we speak about professionalism in engineering, what is your overall take on professionalism in life? You know, when you go to the doctor, the hairdresser, or the travel agent.
It's a interesting one. I haven't thought about that from this perspective like that. But I normally like there is the experience that I want to have. So like when you hire those professionals that you mentioned, the minimum that you expect is to have a good experience with them. So you expect them to treat you very well, so that you expect a very pleasant relationship with them. You are going there with a problem, so you would expect them to really try to understand what your problem is, and then of course have that confidence that they will be able to solve the problem. And that confidence normally is acquired in the case of a doctor, a hairdresser, or so on, needs to be acquired in a very short amount of time. So the way that they treat you, the way that they explore the problem, the way that they, the questions that they ask, but also how they gradually start showing how much they understand about the problem. So that is the feeling, that perception to say, like, I'm dealing with a professional here, right?
Yeah, and I think, like, in a way, how also you described it, we can already guess that it goes something similar to the professional in our industry. If we talk about engineer, developer, it's a super similar things.
Very similar, very similar. And what you expect is it needs to be a pleasure, first of all, to work with those people, right? So you cannot call someone a professional when you cannot even work with them, right? So ultimately, when you hire a professional, that person needs to really try to help you, right? So as a client, as a customer, you are there ultimately to solve their problems. The way that you go about is what will really distinguish the different calibers of professionals that you have. But that, for me, that would be the bare minimum that I would expect from professionals, including software engineers or software professionals, to behave.
Yeah, but it's interesting. If I recall, I come from computer sciences in our Riga Technical University. We didn't had any courses on how to be pleasant, how to communicate with people. It was all hardcore tech subjects, and then some of like system thinking, analytics, which was also good, but not focus on making relationships, making a teamwork happen, and so on. So
It's funny that you're saying that, because like this was my experience as well going through university, and I believe that I went to university way before you. Like I'm probably significantly older than you, but this is true for us as well. And I'm not sure if it changed in our industry, and that's a shame, because like most of the modern companies, when they are looking for developers, mainly companies that are service companies, right? So where their software professionals are facing an external client. There is the element of what we call the technical mastery, and the things that you mentioned that you learned in university. They are very focused on the technical mastery, which any good professional, of course, that there are some baselines that you would expect a good professional to have, and one of them is they are very good at the problem that they try to solve, right? So that is one aspect. But that more what some people call soft skills. We internally prefer to call it consultancy skills in a way, but they are the normal soft skills that we call. They are very important because you can. It's very difficult for you to be successful if you are not able to collaborate, right? So having that understanding on more on the psychological side, or how you interact, how you address people and problems, is a key part of being a professional today. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and I think that we had discussion with our colleagues over like the soft skills make it sound like soft, and people like hard skills are better. And then it's like, okay, it's a people skills. Like you just need to know how to work with people.
But see, there is another aspect, because like there is sometimes we make a distinction of like, oh, hardcore engineering to very soft skills and treating people well. No, there is a lot in the middle as well. An example would be uh, ways of working,
Mhm.
right? So for example, a good professional, I would expect them to precisely describe how they work. So for example, if I say, look, I'm going to hire you. Let's say that you are offering a service and I'm in need of that service. So first I have a chat with you. I have a good impression. But now also, when you come in to provide that service to me, I would expect you to take me on a journey. So you will conduct me. I don't need to think much. I just you will be doing all the okay, Sandro, I'm here to talk to you. So the first phase, we are going to sit down. I would like to understand more about your needs. I want to understand what have you tried, what you have not tried, what are you comfortable with. And so basically, you know how you work. You know how to take me as a client from the early conversations all the way until you are now applying your hardcore engineering skills. But this is what ways of working. It's not just soft skills and oh, I'm gonna treat you well.
Mhm,
No,
mhm.
no, it's far more than that. You have a procedure, you have a way of applying your job, and that's for me is a very important aspect of professionalism as well.
Yeah, yeah, totally. But do you believe that in the industry, and you meet many thought leaders or people who are in industry, also part of the conferences, that they share the same mindset and approach to it as you?
It's difficult to say. I believe that in more general terms, probably yes. I would be really surprised if someone that is successful, that runs a business, I would be really surprised if they said, no, you're going to do like a very bad job with our clients. I believe that uh, at the very high level, everyone would say, yes, of course, we want to provide a great service. Of course, we want to be some of the best we can be, and so on and so forth. The problem is how you try to achieve that. I think that the discrepancies is how, first of all, our view of what a good service is, and how do we go about that, right? So I think that that's where probably uh, not only myself with others, but like among people, we will start diverging. Is on the how, a bit less so on the what. Of course, there are always exceptional cases, but like um, I think that measuring that becomes very difficult as well, because for example, in one of the conversations we had internally, Mesh, that is the other co-founder of Coherence, we were discussing professionalism the other day, and he said like professionalism is about uh, consistently achieving good results, right? So, and this is very important because like there are so many things to unpack in there, because like as I said, a lot of people might say, "Oh yeah, well, of course we value that," but like, are you consistently achieving good results? So, how do you define good results? How do you define consistently as well? So, according to which criteria is it like? Are you evaluating the results yourself, or this is also being evaluated by the people that are paying for your services, right? So. And there is also at what cost you're achieving those results as well, because like some people might have a very simplistic view. For example, I was hired to do A, I went there and A is done. But what was the process? For example, like yes, the I was hired to do something, Not just because I did that means that I was a good professional. So even in the craftsmanship world, I use the sentence in my book and in communities many times that um, is basically how it's done is as important as getting it done. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So getting it done is the minimum that you expect. If you are paying for someone to do a job, regardless if you are a contractor, a consultant, or if you're a permanent employee. It doesn't matter. Someone is paying for you to offer a service. So you offer your skills and service in exchange to be paid and so on, right? So getting something done is the minimum that you are expected to achieve, right? But how you get there is where it's going to distinguish people. And this is why I said, like going back to your question, I believe that in general terms, yes, I believe that most people we will agree that we want to be professional and good at what we do and stuff. But how do we achieve our goals is I think that where it differs a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can definitely reflect on this consistency of results. I myself, first time, felt that I'm professional in the terms that I agreed with myself. It was
Mhm.
actually 8 years in the industry, and I'm like now total 16, and I'm reflecting and thinking, oh my God, the first 8 years, the stuff I was doing, it's like, who allowed me
Mhm.
to do that? And then I was like really reflecting, like, why I felt so. And it's actually was the moment when no matter what circumstances, what people, the size of the project, size, is it a product, is it a project, is it local and remote, I can achieve results, which is like what expected for me. And it also was, for me, it was important that I make impact on the peers so they can be successful with me as well. But that was the moment, like when I felt confident that no matter where you threw me in,
Mhm.
I will be able to do that. And that was like, yes,
I
I am
think this
professional.
is a very cool point that you are raising because like our job is very complex because most of the time, for the vast majority of us, we don't work in isolation, right? We need to distinguish the one person company that takes some small websites to do on their own and stuff from most of us, I believe that we work in as part of a much larger team in a much larger organization with multiple constraints and things. So you mentioned one aspect of a good professional that we value a lot. For example, we were discussing what makes you a senior or what makes you valuable in an organization, right? So what as a professional, if you just focus on your own outcome, yeah, so you hired me, you say, okay, what do you need from me? I go there and do exactly what you asked me. There is one value. Unless that, if what I do is extremely specialized that no one else in the world or very few people in the world can do, then okay, I still can provide a lot of value just with my individual outcome. But for the vast majority of us, uh, there are quite a few people that can do what we do, right? So, but I think that when you become valuable as a professional to an organization is when you become a multiplier, right? So you have your outcome, but as you were saying, you are also able to transform the environment around you better. You are able to create a system where multiple people can perform better, right?
Mm.
So, and I think that this is an excellent example that you gave in being a good professional as well.
Mm. Yeah, and again, like in my case, it was really also about the experience. It's like getting and, but also actually, I also understood like it's really to getting this experience not only by myself, but through conferences, asking other people, reading a lot, like the from cross disciplines as well. But it's like was really studying, study, and the practice. It was dedicated work actually to make it happen. I don't think it happened by accident.
So this is another aspect of professionalism as well. So I'm gonna ask you a question then. So you mentioned that there were in your first 8 years that you had a certain set of behaviors or and now you changed and now you mentioned that you start learning on your own and speaking to people. So how do you see your personal learning? Uh, how do you think that personal learning fits with professionalism? And whose job is that to learn, or like is it?
Ah, I am a proponent of that's my only job because I am the key beneficiary of that. Because the more I know, the more I confident, the more I competitive. I would never give it to someone else, a manager or company, if they can provide me extra stuff. That's why I choose employer where I can develop, where I have possibilities, go to conference, have free time. But that's my responsibility. And I actually see in our industry that many come and ask for career paths and where is my learning. And I was like, guys, you don't want to give up it. That's like really yours. So I guess you agree with the
Totally.
approach.
No, totally. I was just like seeing because this happens also over time as well. So I totally agree. I think that another sign of professionalism is your learning, your upskilling is your own, is part of your own career development, and you should not um, delegate that, right? So, and as you said, of course, that companies, smart companies, they would create a um, space where people can develop, can learn, because like that benefit is also going towards them. However, I treat that as a bonus. For example, I don't treat that as an expectation or an obligation of the company. And I always give that example of, for example, you started our conversation mentioning doctors or solicitors or hairdressers and stuff, dentists and accountants and gardeners, builders, like plumbers, anyone, right? So imagine that if we were going to them with the problem, and they turn back to you and say, "Yeah, I can solve you that. So, but before, can you pay me a training course?" And then I always say that. And then let's imagine that you are really not well in your head. You go there and you pay the training course for them. They come back and charge you for the work after you gave them the knowledge. So how is that being a professional, right?
But why do you think it happened in our industry? Why we went into this black hole of that's what, because that's what I also very often feel, that people saying, but give me time to learn. I don't need, like, oh, the new technologies are coming, I'm not prepared for it, think something for me, like the where is my time? Yeah, so why you think it happened in our industry, even though we do not expect it in doctors or gardeners and so on?
It's a good question. It's a very good question. I obviously think a bit deeper on the origins of that. But for example, one thing we know is that for other professions like lawyers, doctors, dentists, and all the other ones that we mentioned, even like professions like being a plumber or a dentist, or sorry, a builder, a hairdresser. So even professions that you don't necessarily need to go through a full university, you need to do some courses and training and certifications. But those people, when they chose those professions, they already had in their mindset that they would work for themselves,
Mhm.
right? So I believe I'm just like trying to answer your question, because I never
Mhm.
thought too deeply about that. But I believe that is part of their journey into that profession of almost being an independent person,
Mhm.
instead of someone that you just like work as part of a much wider group and share their title. Or, for example, in a team, you have multiple developers doing very similar work. You have multiple teams of developers. So all of a sudden, you have a very large group of people that do a similar job. And that creates, I don't know, I'm just trying to, because I don't behave like that, and clearly you don't either. Um, but I believe that that's probably about that. It's like when you are going through university, your head is like, I'm gonna find a job in a large organization, and so you are already thinking, okay, I'm gonna be just another one in the middle of many, and
Mhm.
then you transfer. So I don't know, because although we went through that journey, and the two of us, we don't
Mhm.
think this way, but there is, I think, that maybe someone like inspirational. Well, seeing other people say, look, even if you work for a large corporation, I worked for large corporations my entire life. most of the companies that I worked, they were large organizations, but I always had my independence in terms of what I learned, how I learned, and because I knew that the better I was, the more valuable I would be, the more opportunities I would have in as the company grows, as company changes. If you are very versatile and if you master a much wider set of skills, you are normally well positioned to take certain opportunities, right? So that's how I always thought about it.
Yeah, yeah. My hypothesis also was that, and you can also comment, because I think like a bit the industry is also changing. Because if I remember when I started to work 16 years ago, I had developers who learned developing from books. There was
Mhm.
no search. It's like going through the books, doing stuff, and hoping it will work. It's using diskettes for the delivery of stuff physically, so it required it was a wish like to make it happen, and you can make it only if you're the self-driven. But then when it became a part of education and everyone screams that like, oh, you just go, you learn, and you suddenly have a job in corporation, and then Google says, but we are doing this and that for our employees. And then like that's the like generation also changed on how what type of people we get into the industry.
I think that there is an element of that as well. There is an element of generations. There is an element of supply and demand as well. So,
Hmm.
for example, as today is more a developers market, which means there is far more people trying to recruit than
Yes.
actually people available in the market. And that's why we have so many initiatives to bring more people to our industry from many different backgrounds and so on, right? Because we need more people. But because there is that demand, so a potentially negative impact, and we certainly have seen that, you create a big sense of entitlement, right? Because like today, a junior developer is having offers that sometimes like, what are all those companies thinking,
Yes.
right? To offer it. But the thing is, you have companies that they cannot distinguish themselves from others because they're very boring, traditional, or whatever else. They don't have anything that is appealing. So they throw money at it, right? That's how they try.
Mhm.
So, but as more and more companies are trying to hire developers, and I'm talking about in a general way, of course, that we know the two of us, like there are many exceptions out there, but 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 this might explain as well because it's so easy to find a job. You can just relax a bit. No, I can work for you, but you need to teach me that. You need to give me this. You need to give me that. You need to give me that. All
Mm.
of a sudden, like we are creating a bunch of prima donnas. Like this is a criticism that I have from the software craftsmanship movement, which I was part of. I helped to create and evolve the thing, right? So, but when I look back into software craftsmanship like 12 years ago, well, more now, 14, almost, the one of the things that sometimes I look back is like, did we create a bunch of prima donnas, right? So I think there is an element of that as well, and I hope that this will restore some balance in the future.
But do you have any kind of this elevator pitch for the, because for the person who understands that I actually can be mid, mediocre professional, right? I don't call it like
Mhm.
developer, it's enough to know the basic stuff, and then I can get I can get quite good compensation and get into the company. Like how to open the mind and say, hey, no, that's not enough, like you should go for more and you should invest in yourself. Do you have some kind of pitch for this
Oof.
case?
This is difficult because, like, I believe that those mediocre, but in terms of like not in a pejorative way, it's more like what I think that what we mean here is like people that what, like this is just my job,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I believe that every profession has that. I believe that you can probably find in doctors as well. You probably can find in every single profession. There are people that they do their job, it's their job. They like, I mean, they go there, they do their job. It's not that they are massively unhappy in doing that. but they're also not willing to dedicate a lot of their time in evolve. So in terms of motivating those people, I've been changing, not changing my mind, but like because I spent my life doing that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So in trying to motivate people, but I also had that view that what is good for me might be good for everyone, which is this took me a while to understand. It's like when you are young and you feel that, oh, I'm doing this and doing that, and I'm having a lot of fun. I love doing that, and I think that everyone should do that. So I I believe that it's important that we talk about that, that we try to inspire as many people as we can. There is a social aspect to it. I believe that as our society evolves, we rely more and more on software. So it's really important that we have people that are well qualified to build mainly mission critical software. But I also, so this is one side. I think that that's worth doing that just for pushing the boundaries of our profession and society in general. But also, I learned how to temper my expectation as well, because not everyone will be like us, or and some people say, you know what, Sandro, yeah, it's all great. I can resonate what you're saying. However, I have other preferences. I have other hobbies. I have like I have a whatever. I don't like the family excuse because I have a family myself. Right?
Mhm.
So but I mean they might have other things that they want to do,
Mm.
and they're okay and say, look, I don't want to be. I don't think that any profession, any person would say like, I want to be shit at my job. I really, I don't think that anyone will have that feeling. But they might not have big aspirations. For some people, it's okay. You know, I think that what, so I had to learn with that because you get frustrated sometimes. You say, look, I think that everyone should do this and should be. They are different people. They have different issues. However, I can respect them. I think that I think people should do whatever is right for them. Yeah. I'm not in any position to tell you or anyone else what to do with their lives. But there are certain jobs in certain environments that you need people that are really good at what they do.
Mm.
It should be, it's very important that you have some of the best professionals that you find, because certain systems are far more important than others. So then, although people can decide what kind of, I think that they should do this, they should decide what kind of profession they want to be. But what they cannot do is to choose what job they want, right? So
Yeah.
they cannot force a company to hire them or to offer them pay rises and promotions and certain things when they don't offer the right skills and attitude that are needed for that kind of position and salary. That's the other side to it.
I really liked what you mentioned. I will be definitely taking it with me as an example about the building society that software
Mhm.
starts to play like more and more crucial role. And if we really don't step up into making good software, because we can see how many government, for example, software, everyone looks at it and just like, oh, it's horrible, it's waste of money. It's like, yeah, but who is doing that? Whose responsibility to make it good? So if we really don't step up there, that will be part of our life. It's the same, right? Imagine if all the doctors will be like, "Ah, that's just job. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't." Yes, I really like the focus on that. We are shaping where we are, the environment, and we need to take it seriously and make it really good.
Yeah, and there is another aspect. Like if you really extrapolate, I remember having this conversation with Bob Martin, right, Uncle Bob. So we're talking about professionalism, and what our industry is not regulated, right? So which means that anyone with any background could do what we do today, right? So they have a computer and they have enough brains to go to the internet and learn and read stuff and learn. Like anyone can do, and this is a good thing in my view. This is why our industry evolved so much. And we
Mhm.
went from, as you were saying, like when you started, people with discs and stuff like that. Like I started when I went to university in 1994. We didn't have internet. Internet was still becoming a thing. So can you imagine that, like the world before the internet? So that's where we were, like what, 20, 30 years ago. So we completely changed the world. If you think about with software and computing in general, we completely is unrecognizable, right? So so then, but for most professions, like you, for you to become a doctor, is a regulated thing. You cannot just do whatever you want as a doctor. You can be prosecuted for a mistake. You can kill someone and so on and so forth. The same with an engineer, a proper engineer, not us. So
Mhm.
a civil engineer, electrical engineer, and so on. A lawyer, the same thing. So because so those professions, like you have a code of conduct. You have like some laws that you cannot cross or behaviors that cannot cross. So I love the idea of our industry to be free, right? But more and more, the software that we build is inside our cars, our trains, our hospitals, our government, as you mentioned, and like a lot of other things that are crucial for us as banks. Like, can you imagine like a collapse in the banks would
Mhm.
destroy the economy? So, and the reason I'm saying that is because, like Uncle Bob, in that conversation we were discussing, like more and more we are seeing a few problems in the software that are killing people. That is a car crash where because the car could not brake, or two trains that collided, or I don't know, a rocket that exploded. Right. So if we keep making mistakes, if the number of people working in critical systems increase, and you do systems like we do today with no proper practices or ways of working, without discipline and a set of standards, at some point we'll make mistakes, too many mistakes that are too expensive, that someone, a government somewhere will say, we need to regulate computer science. And all of a sudden, all of us are now will need to work behind very severe regulations. And the things that we have today that are great in our industry, getting people, changing industries, join our industries from different backgrounds, and like without bureaucracy that anyone can come in and try to write code, we will lose all of that. You need to go through a very formal training and stuff. And at that point, we will stifle innovation. We as a society will innovate less because we don't have the software and hardware evolution.
Yeah. And that's actually what is also happening in medicine, because how regulated it is. Like, I'm following a lot of well-being stuff, and they're said, like, if we will wait till everything is approved, what we see is now showing good results of, I don't know, what you should eat, what you shouldn't, and like exercise and so on, it will be like a bit too late.
Yeah.
That, like, we encourage, of course, people to experiment on like they need to understand it, but like if we wait, it takes so long. Yeah, that's but one thing also, maybe how you see it, because I was thinking what we are discussing now, right? And your book is about those practices. The fraternity conference, I was part of track 3, which was all about how to be professional, actually. And But the audience of the conferences and probably this talk will be watched by engineers, maybe tech lead, yeah, probably tech leads as well. But I really doubt the C-level people, even of software companies, are watching it. Or I'm wrong. How do you feel? Are the CEOs of companies, both business companies, because they also use software, and software companies, are they getting also on this level of being curious, actually, what makes a great
I
software
think that it
engineer?
depends. Yeah, I think that it depends on the maturity of those companies. Because like what happened was, when you think about it, agile, that the whole agile movement is from 2001, so it's 21 years old now. Software craftsmanship, the first meeting was in November 2008. So it's almost like 14 years now, right? So, and then things like DevOps, they've been around for quite a few years. Lean, been around for many years. So the industry is maturing. And then people like ourselves, that we started, well, I started, I don't want to say that you are the same age, because that That's not true. But for example, but even yourself, like you've been in the industry for 16 years, right? So a lot of us that learned some of those skills, we are now getting the position of the CTOs, the C levels, the VPs of engineering. So there is a lot of people in that senior management, if you like. There are people that came from the agile movement and the craftsmanship and any other. So you find them. I think that as an industry, we are much better today than we were before. I
Okay.
I, I look the progress with. I'm positive. I'm always like a half full kind of guy, right? So my glass is always half full.
Yeah.
So I think that we are better. We still have a lot of work to do. There are still organizations that are also very old school and stuff like that, and maybe the senior management in those organizations might not necessarily see those things. But we have more and more that are seeing. But the key thing here, going back to the developers and so on, we have a responsibility to make them see. I will
Mm.
never blame someone. For example, I will never blame you for not understanding what I'm saying. I'll never blame you for not seeing what I see. So if I feel that something is so great and that I'm so right, why would you not see that? So some people would say, oh, because the other person is stupid, or no, it's your failure to communicate. Because if I'm so confident, so right, I would start from the premise like, what do I need to do for her? So where am I failing here, right? So, and I think that if we want someone to see that, we need to show to them the value. But you need to speak at their language. It's almost like I always say, like in our fireside chats at Codunus, I always say, like, put yourself in the position of the person that is paying your salary, or the person that has the accountability for that product or that company or that department. If you are that person, right? Let's say that you run your company or your department or a group of people. You have your commitments. You are accountable for certain things, and you build your experience over time. And then imagine that there is one person that comes to you and say, Valeria, you don't know what you're doing. You don't work well. You cannot. You don't see the light, right? So yeah. So you are not enlightened as I am. So you should change the way. You should do what I'm telling you. I don't know about you, but I would say exactly right. So of course I would not. I would stop. I would switch off completely and not listen to that person at all, because the approach was arrogant, was just criticizing me, and was not putting anything that is solving any problem for me. So, but it's very different. For example, if I go to you and say, Valeria, like, I would like some time with you, like, I would like, so instead of me already saying to you, hey, Valeria, here are a few solutions. We need to do TDD, we need to use serverless, we need to do machine learning there, and so on. And then it's like, Sandro, what is the problem that you're trying to solve here?
Mm.
But instead, if I went to you, say, Valeria, how do you see your progress this year? What do you think that is missing? And if I start understanding the pains that you have, the problems that you see, because before we discuss a solution, and this is for me what a good professional should always do, is do we even agree on the problem? Right? You being my boss or leading someone, I would first of all try to reach a consensus in the problem, because if you don't see the problem that I see, there's no way we can agree in any solution. And that's for me the sign of a good professional as well. You don't go and offer a solution to someone that doesn't even recognize the problem, right? And this is why I feel that we fail as developers, because we are too technical, and we are quite often we are passionate about the solution, and then we try to keep finding and say we need to find a problem to use the solution, right? And we blame someone else that don't agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. And I also, what I've noticed, I always say to my colleagues, and yeah, I work with many companies, and they say you need to understand that you usually have like product manager, which is like a salesperson, right? And then you have an architect, which is this passionate person about technology. And then you ask, hey, explain the technical depth or explain something, right? And then, of course, everything that tells you PM, he speaks your language. You will all believe it because it's like, and then of course the architect comes and says his words, and it will be alien word, might be for you, and that's why you don't get the input. It's like, why they're not explaining? It's like they actually do. You just like used to other type of explanations with the slides and the whole show, for example, and because it is a bit different. And I also agree that somehow we as engineers would just step up with this communicating, taking time and patience to explain. It gives brings a big value for our work and for the common value.
Because ultimately our work is to generate business value, right? So if we cannot even explain that, or if you don't like to talk about that, so then you would be in a very difficult position, right?
Mm. Okay, so far I have a notes about what the MVP stands for. It's, for example, taking responsibility to explain what you care of and not to blame others for not understanding. Is before discussing the solution, is agreeing on the problem itself and focusing on value, owning your career development and learning,
Mhm.
pleasant journey, like a pleasant experience. So people actually are willing to work with you and enjoying it. Team player, aka multiplier, and
Mhm.
consistent results.
Yeah.
Anything else we should add
Um,
to this long
yeah, so
list?
some of them could be summarized as delighting your clients. So make sure that not only the clients, but everyone that works near you.
Mm,
So that the there are a few things that are a bit more smaller, not smaller, because they're all important somehow, but they are a bit different. One is your attitude as well. So, for example, a good professional never complains, never. So there is no excuse for complaining, and I will explain to you why. One thing is like all of us get frustrated, right? This is a fact, right? It doesn't matter how well balanced you are in your head, we will get frustrated, probably even multiple times a day. But the difference between me being frustrated and me complaining is enormous, right? Because like a complaining doesn't do any good for anyone except for the person complaining, right? I go to you, you as my boss. I go to you and just vent and just complain that everything is wrong, everything is shit, and blah blah blah. And then now I'm relieved because I took that out of my chest, but I threw you a bone, and then I just go home and sleep. So how is that useful? Because next time you don't want to speak to me again, right? So as soon as you see me coming to your desk, it's oh my god, let put the phone, start typing, and let's pretend that you are busy so I don't speak to you, right? So a good professional, it doesn't matter how frustrated you are, you need to kind of to channel that frustration into, okay, how can I solve this? Even if you don't have the answer, but I could go to you and say, hey, Valeria, look, I might not have the answers, but there are a few things that I feel that are not going so well. I have a few ideas. They are not very well formed yet. I just wondered how you feel about that, and if there is anything that together we can do. See the difference. So a good professional never complain because you just transfer your frustration to others and you don't solve. Uh, Another thing is being dependable. A good professional is always dependable. For example, it doesn't matter what the problem is. I know that I can rely on you, that you are going to be there, that you are open to do what it takes, right? So you never come to me and say, I cannot do that when I'm busy, or you disappear every Friday. You have a headache and don't turn up to work, right? So uh, so a good professional is always dependable, and you need to be there. You need to be at work, not in the office. I mean, that you need to be available, right? So even, for example, of course, that people get sick. I get sick. Everyone gets sick. But if I have a deadline, if I'm in a hospital, is one thing. If I have a headache, I will still make sure that things happen, even if I need to take the day because I'm. See what I'm saying? So, and that sense of professional, I'm not, by no means, I don't want to be misinterpreted. I'm not saying that people should work when they are not well. But you as a professional, you understand that when you are not able to perform your duties, you will do everything in your power to make sure that things can continue to the best that you can without you being there, right? And this is what I mean. So being dependable, being open-minded. So those are things that I would say, and committed to improvements, right? So, but I think you mentioned that already. But those are things that I probably would add.
That was like two comments, and they're actually a bit related. Is because when you were saying about being dependable, and I think I myself very much benefited from being there, saying yes, even when I thought maybe it will be hard to do, but I rather say yes and then see how it goes. That gave a lot of opportunities, and then people associated me with being saying yes. But I never felt into the trap of burnout by saying too much yes. I don't know why, because but yes always got me to new levels, never to the burnout. Maybe because I don't know. Maybe I was lucky, because what I want to tell, that nowadays there are a lot of articles and saying like, hey, we'll need to learn how to say no, and we shouldn't overwhelm us, and the whole well-being stuff, which is of course important. But I also see that many people maybe sometimes think more about how to say no than to like yes and then try to make it happen. Do you see similar things?
I think that there is I wrote, even in my book that you mentioned my book
Mhm.
before, there is a chapter where I don't remember exactly which one. I think being a hero, I think, or chapter 6. I don't remember exactly where. But I mentioned something about learning how to say no. Yeah. However, the learning how to say no doesn't mean that you, as my boss, you ask me, hey, Sandro, can you do that? And I say no. And I stop there. Right? So you need to learn how to say no, but doing everything you can to say yes. And the difference here is to say, for example, you come to me and say, hey, Sandro, we need to do this. I really need that and stuff. I think you are more suitable to do that. And I said, Valer, absolutely. I'm more than happy to help you with that. The only thing is, I have those other things that I'm also committed. And how can we prioritize that, right? So I would be more than happy to drop this, but I promise this I give you the context of my workload. But so I said I said that I can help you. So I'm already like, I can collaborate, but we need to work together now to figure out how that would fit with everything else that I might be doing, so that I don't work 24 hours a day, so I don't burn out, but I'm still willing to work with you to say yes. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And,
The no should never
that's
be
a huge
alone.
difference.
Yeah, yeah. It shouldn't never be like no, or I can't. It should be again discussion of explaining why. So the other person actually also learns more about you. So they understand also what is your capacity, what is your ambition, what is your current state, right? Yeah, yeah. Like,
Because there are things that can burn you out. One is the workload, and also sometimes doing something that you might not be
like
uh, not having all the skills to do, and that because now you are committed to a task, and now people are expecting you to deliver, but you feel that you don't have the skills or so on. So this is another point where I say, like, Valeria, I can certainly help you with that, but like before we start, I just need you to know that this is not something I know well. I would love to learn it, but like if you need that to be done at a very high standard and by tomorrow,
yeah.
uh, I cannot do that for you. But if you have more flexibility in the time and you are willing that I learn during this process, because this is not something that I know well, then I'm more than happy to help. So see the difference in conversation here. You
Mm,
are still willing to try, But you cannot. What you cannot do is just say, "Hey, yeah, just add to my backlog for things that I need to deliver tomorrow." Then you are going to burn out and generate unhappiness. Everyone will be unhappy, including yourself.
Mm. But then, connected question, curiosity is when we had the fraternity first track, we had the Slack channel, and I asked like, "What are your best practices as engineers?" And I actually expected people to say TDD, pair programming, but everyone started to comment about the well-being stuff like meditation, focus time, the sleep, which was, I think, it was super good that people are so mature that they understand that you need to take care of yourself to do the good work. What are your go-to practices to be sharp and in shape?
I don't know. It's so difficult for me to answer this question because, like, I feel that I've been evolving my career in different ways. And if you take the work that I do today, it's completely different from what I used to do in the past. Like, for example, I come from a very technical background, have always involved in the TDD and design, architecture, software development. Most of I do almost none of that today, right? So I still do at a high level in organizing, giving directions to companies and so on. But most of my job now is to manage a much larger organization. So, for example, the ability to multitask in every meeting being completely different from each other and giving directions is part of my job. I think that I learned how to compartmentalize my time and understand what I can do on my own and what I need to delegate. So,
Mm.
for example, be able to do so many different things at the same time because every meeting, like one is about marketing, the other one is on expansion in Spain, the other one is some recruitment problem that we're having, the other one is contractual models and pricing, and they're completely different from each other. And so you learn how to. I think that one thing is like I learned how to very quickly try to explore the problem domain first before I say anything because I know that my decisions have a big impact today. So first, understand what the problem is and get the opinion of people that are directly involved, so that then ask them like, okay, so what do you propose? And only then starts, okay, so let's go in that direction. But I think that the best probably, this is something that I applied across my entire life, even in like with my family life and everything I do. If you ask me probably what was the most important practice that I learned how to reduce the impact of my decisions or the cost of my decisions and what it means. The principles of agile, short feedback loop, inspect and adapt. So if you are asking me to make a very big decision, I will probably say, no, I'm not going to make the decision, but I will probably say like, what is the bare minimum that we can do? I can agree, okay, let's agree that direction, but not as a concrete plan to that direction. But like, okay, so let's look at the direction, but what is the bare minimum that we can do today so that we give the next step and then we talk again and again. And I learned to do that with my family and at work is to, because then you make decisions cheap. So then, for example, my whole day, I make decisions one after another, one meeting after another. That's what my job is, giving direction and making decisions. I just learned how to make my decisions much cheaper to change. I think that's probably the best practice that I have.
Mm. Yeah, but it's interesting. You just said that you also apply it to your family. But I was looking on the list of what it means to be professional, and all of this also helps in the family, with friends, with society. It
Mhm.
just makes you more productive human being, actually.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. My last thing that I still want to, I see we are running out of time, but still, are you watching FIFA World Cup?
I was until this weekend.
Do you have any favorite team? You
Well, I'm Brazilian, so I was born in Brazil, lived most a big chunk of my life there. So of course that I support Brazil, but I'm also British. So I was supporting Brazil. They lost. Then I said, okay, well, England, they lost. So yeah, so now I'm kind of like I hope that Morocco or someone that never won a World Cup
Mm.
wins the World Cup. I think that if Morocco won, that would be great.
Yeah. Fun fact that I learned, which is connected to our talk, is that there is the Belgian football player. He's Kevin De Bruyne. I hope it's plus minus correctly said. He actually used the analytics company to help him to negotiate the contract and the salary. So they really show through data that he's worth more. And he negotiated a 4-year contract with a 30% increase. So my question, can you advise us what metrics engineers should focus? and yeah, are there any? Because of course one of those Accelerate or DORA metrics are nowadays very popular, like the lead time, deployment frequency. But do you have anything that you use to understand?
So not as precise, because I don't think that we can just what would play against us to be very precise and maximize things is the employment loss. If you do that company to company, for example, if you are a contractor and then say, look, you want 30% more, no problem at all. What is the amount of, so there is a book called Negotiation Genius, right? So one of the authors is a professor at Harvard Business School. So in this book, he talks about many different types of way of negotiating and stuff. But there are many very great insights in the book. But like one of them is you maximize the value creation. So let's say you have a company and you say, hey, you have a problem, right? So a very specific problem. Say, hey, I want someone to solve my problem. I go there and say, hey, Valeria, I could solve that problem for you, and I charge X. And then let's say if X is within what you want to pay, given your market research, we have a deal. But let's say that I charge X, and that is more than what you would like to pay. And then, so then you have a few outcomes in here. I want 30% more than what you want to pay. One outcome is we don't do any business. Another one, we find a middle ground that say 10% more that we are willing to compromise. You compromise, I compromise, you get them. But there might be, let's say, no, I want 30%. So at that point, what we need to do in order to work, we need to maximize the value creation. Then you can say, look, okay, so I can tell them either side or collaborative and say, look, okay, you asked me to do A for you, to do this specific thing. What if we broaden that scope? What if I can, while I do that, I can also generate this kind of value for you? And then you say, okay, is it worth 30% more? Is it the impact, not only fixing that, but also create a wider impact? Then we created value. And then that number fits. But the problem is, what if I don't meet that? If I'm your permanent employee, we have a problem now, because I didn't meet my side of my end. Right? But if I'm a company and you are negotiating with company to company, I'm in breach of the contract. You can say, thank you very much. Now I give you 30% in exchange of this service. In this service, now we can have a different resolution. That is for me what gets difficult. If you want to negotiate salary and you want to put numbers in stuff, some of the employment laws will not allow us to have that debate well, because if you don't meet your end of the deal, what do you do?
Yeah, but I also think that what is important, what you mentioned, and I always say to engineers and product managers, the best way how we can negotiate the salary is actually to know the impact that you make. Is, for example, when you do something, features, you know how many users afterwards starts to use it. You know what users are paying. Usually companies are super transparent about it. You know what they bring on. There is a difference. Do you work on module that brings 80% of revenue of the company, or 001 of the company? So you can actually come and really justify by saying, this is amount of users, this is how fast it goes. It's only 2 people, not 5, and so on. But you really need to, again, understand the value of what you're bringing, and be curious about financials of the company.
Totally. It is the value creation. And normally, like, you have 2 points that you negotiate is once when you are joining a company, but then you will have your negotiations while you are at the company,
Mhm.
right? So, and they are very different. They are quite different how you negotiate. The ones when you are already at the company, you will always be in a stronger position if you are already doing certain things that are way beyond what you were hired for, because then you are in a very strong position. Look, you hired me to be a developer in a team. Like in the past year, I contributed to the communities of practice, I contributed to create new features, I contributed to improve this or that, and all of a sudden you are now operating at a higher level. Any smart company would recognize that, and you have a much easier conversation because you created value. You are already showing that you can do more than what you were supposed. You are in a much weaker position when you just say, I want more salary, but you just did what you were supposed to do, and that's what you were paid for. But now you are asking someone to do 10, 20% more than what you get without really showing why you would need that. So how they would get if they pay you 20% more, would what 20% more value they would get. And if you didn't show anything, then you would be in a very weak position.
Yeah, and that's why, like, you need to be curious about organization, about for whom you make, to be in this confident position, understanding what value you bring. Mm.
And you need to make sure that, because everyone thinks that they do a good job, but then you need to make sure that the person paying your salary also
Yes,
agrees with that, right?
yes, absolutely. Yes. Thank you a lot.
Mhm.
We have many notes. I at least have 9 of what is
Mhm.
professional. And yes, thank you a lot for the conversation. And yeah, from my side and the fraternity side, we wish you a very good holiday season with the family. Probably you will be having some festive season with the colleagues as well. And fantastic 2023.
Yeah, thank you very much. Same for you, and I hope to be with the fraternity again next year.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Bye.